So in recency, Greenville added tuning, and yeah, there are these tuning guides, but maybe you don't know exactly why each aspect works the way it does. And you tried making your own build, but it doesn't really work. Or you just might be a bad driver.
But don't worry, because today I'll be actively showing each dynamic tuning aspect and how it affects you, plus live commentary.
Man, this car handles like shit.
But anyways, let's get right into it.
Important to note for this video, I'll be using the BKM W20Z, which is rear wheel drive. You can change drivetrains, but it won't be talked about in this video.
By the way, if you do enjoy this video up to this point, please make sure to like and subscribe or something, I don't know. It really help out the channel. Back to the video.
Our first aspect is brake bias, which messes with how much force is placed on either the front or the rear brake. If you set it to 0/100, it puts all force on the rear brake, which can cause you to spin out while braking. On the contrary, 100/0 braking puts all the force on the front brakes, causing the opposite problem where you can't turn while you're braking. But in general, you do something like 40 front and 60 back for builds where you want to oversteer, such as drift or sport builds. I'm skipping this, but rear-wheel drive delivers power to the rear wheels, which give you stuff like burnouts and drifts, etc. All-wheel drive gives you all the grip, likely better for off-road and track, and front-wheel drive is for economics cars. It pulls the car forward and not really good for stuff besides that. Steer angle generally means the maximum angle the front wheels can turn from the center outwards. This would result in a car that has a wider turning radius and cannot turn as much in general, but it is still stabler in terms of grip. Okay, maybe not. You can already see the difference with max steering angle. This results in sharper turning. The handling overall is just much snappier, though it is quite easy to lose control. I'd recommend this for drift and sport builds. Also avoid this if you're doing something like an off-road build. But just for extra reference, here's the stock steering angle settings. Steer damping is generally a measure of the resistance on handling. So when inputs rapidly change, the car is less likely to spin out. So if your steer damping is low, your response would be basically instant. Higher steer damping also generally offers stability, but this is much more subtle in this case. If I'll be frank, I can't commentate over this because I don't know how this works. The point at which 100% handling is registered is higher on lower steer decay and vice versa. Higher steering decay means cars are more easy to go into basically full turning mode, which makes it snappier and easier to correct back into a straight line. Let's not talk about how it does in the rain and You have a cornucopia of 6 tire types to choose from, the default of which is all season. But honestly, before we do any of the other compounds, let's just see how all season does as a whole. If you don't understand it already, this is basically the section of the video where I show how the default car, no dynamics, no changes looks like. Let's take a look at how drift tires do now. But before we go on, I'd like to say that you can change the wheels on both or either the front and the rear. So that means you could have, let's say, drift tires in front or off-road tires in the back or vice versa, or however way you'd like it. But back to drift tires, I think the idea is very straightforward. No grip. That's just it. Forget about the rain or off-road, this is just no grip, that's it. Yeah, I guess this one's pretty straightforward, but it does also affect your braking by making it a tad bit slower. Onto off-roading tires, this is very much direct in the name. Off-road, it works well, it grips well off the road. On the road, not as well, but it is still quite grippy, just to say the least. I wonder what type of build you would use this in. And before I finish, here is the launch of it on dirt, and also just driving in the rain. Personally, I would say the sport tire is just a slightly elevated version of the all-season. Should you put this on all your cars? No, I wouldn't really recommend it. Only put it on the really sporty ones, because these two are practically the same. The original and this, I mean. But as you'd expect for a non-off-roading tire, it does terribly on the off-road. Just like all season, probably slightly worse actually. Next up is racing slicks, which really do live up to their name. There's like no tread on that at all. As you'd expect, some pretty never mind. not great off-roading, but surprisingly, actually unsurprisingly, gives your car pretty damn good launch and also gripping really well in the road. Even though it feels very much swingy, it still has pretty good grip and has the ability to straighten up just very quickly. Grip is a very much strong suit in this one. Let's not talk about off-road again. Oh, you know, the racing slicks actually have some quite remarkable braking. There's no absolute tire marks on the thing. That's just proving its raw grip on asphalt. And our last compound is track. A little worse than the racing slicks on asphalt, but definitely better than it off-road, and still quite good in terms of drifting. Just behind the drift and sport tires, I would say. Braking with this is almost like the racing slicks, which is why I'd say if you want to go for racing slicks, you'd only put it on a drag build or a super optimized race build. If you're going for general racing, not drag racing, I would say this tire is better. Cause look at it right now. It's actually raining and it's not doing that bad. And even off the rough road, it still drives. I'm gonna. As I was saying, the off-road in this car is slightly better than the racing's. Okay, never mind. Spring damping is actually pretty simple. It generally means how soft your suspension can get. This influences how you go over bumps, etc. like you see. That's very low suspension stiffness, which means it's able to adapt to these types of surfaces. If you look around the wheel area, the car has better recoil. I don't know, that's the best way I would call it. I mean, just look at the side, how much the fenders are going up and down over the wheel. That is low suspension stiffness. And likewise, slightly raising the car and pushing it forward even when braking. And higher spring dampening just does the opposite effect. It makes the car stiffer. That's basically it. Looking at the braking, there isn't as much bounce, you could say, as the previous one. Though, since the ride height is a little low on the coupe, it might be slightly negligible. At its core, I think the stiffness and tamping are inherently intertied, because this is low spring stiffness, and it's got that same bouncy effect as you just saw there. But probably because of that, it's also better on the off-roads, affecting spring damping would. With higher spring stiffness, I really don't know what to say. It's just like higher spring damping. That's about it. And just as a final note, this car stays basically flat while braking. It's incredible. But yeah, without much further ado, that's the entire video. That's suspension, summarized, dynamics, basically. If you enjoyed the absolute chaos that went on here, please do not hesitate to like and subscribe. Something. Maybe. Thank you. Alright. Bye-bye. I'm Heisenberger. I'll see you later.